We're back in Westeros, baby! Yes, Game of Thrones has returned, and I cover this show a little bit different than I cover others. I don't do a traditional breakdown here. Instead, each week, I name the top 6 moments in the episode, and I encourage you to rank your own moments down below. Yes, play along, please. All right, so moment number 6. Hey, that looks familiar. We've got King's Landing and the Red Keep. Even though this is a prequel, to me, Cersei still haunts these halls like the evil Disney queen that she was. We've got a weirwood tree, and then, of course, the houses. Starkend House, right? The Baratheon lads. Some of these are very subtle, but it's very rewarding when you pick up on them. I like it. They don't spoon feed it to you. They treat you like an adult. And, of course, you have to be an adult to watch this show. Sir Criston Cole is Dornish, right? Not to mention the secret that King Viserys shares with his daughter, a secret that's supposed to be passed on from ruler to ruler that was clearly lost with the Targaryen line, and that's that winter would be the great threat, the greatest threat that mankind would ever face, and that a Targaryen would need to be on the throne for them to win, or at least so close that not getting it was super annoying and almost destroyed the franchise. But yes, these small elements really help to make us feel like we're watching a prequel, even though this takes place many generations before we even get close to the story that we already know. So it works very well. Also, pay attention to the house colors. This is a little bit like Harry Potter houses. Targaryen is red and black, and Hightower is green. Those 2 houses and their colors are particularly important going forward. So you've been warned. Pay attention. All right, moment number 5, the death of 1,000 cuts. It's literally such a small part of the show, but the poetic nature of it is so freaking fantastic. Beautiful writing! King Viserys is literally being whittled down by the Iron Throne, and those wounds are slowly consuming him. It's what his council is doing to him metaphorically day by day. I love it, and Paddy Considine really sells it, both frustrated and embarrassed by these seemingly inconsequential wounds that he is still, even as king, unable to fend off. Oh, I love it. Heavy is the head that wears the crown. And Paddy Considine, well, he really, he can hardly stand up straight. All right, which leads to moment number 4, king shit. Well, aspiring king shit. Strutting around like a peacock with the helmets to match. Yes, Damon Targaryen, played by Mr. Matt Smith, is this debut episode's ace, supplying many of the shock value moments that are what make House of the Dragon feel very much like Game of Thrones. The City Watch sequence not only featured Game of Thrones' golden oldie castration, although I've seen what they threw on that table multiple times, and I'm like, I'm not quite sure what I'm looking at. It was real clear. They used visual aids last time, that sausage. All right, so anyway, maybe it wasn't a full castration. I mean, I don't know. All right, so I mean, I love Game of Thrones. All right. But also the City Watch sequence referenced the Night's Watch, even just in turning a phrase, but still, they're different organizations. But some very nice choreography and energy, to the show, to the episode, providing an action sequence in the middle of all this drama. So I thought that was great. I loved when they marched in formation. I thought the filming of the sequences and some of the sped up photography, it was all really well done. Is Daemon his brother's biggest threat, or the biggest threat to those who wish to control the throne, as Daemon is not as easily led around as his brother? What makes Daemon perhaps the most dangerous is that he doesn't play by the rules. This is a game and it has rules, and Daemon does not play by them. For instance, clearly one is supposed to expand one's family as soon as possible to fortify their position and expand their reach. Yet Daemon refuses to start a family with the wife his brother picked for him. That's the path. Why? That's the path that his brother and his brother's advisors want for Daemon to get rid of him. But by not having a child with her, he refuses to go down that path, and he's going to try and see if he can avoid it. Very, very interesting. But I have to say, toasting his dead nephew as heir for a day, you might not be weak, Daemon, but you certainly are sloppy and careless. Damon Targaryen cozies up to two things this episode. His niece, Princess Rhaenyra, to whom he speaks Valyrian. That's what Dracarys is, but they're having a whole conversation. And this was a language actually made real by HBO for the first show. And some fans have actually learned Valyrian. Who here didn't need subtitles? And also, his red dragon. He loves his dragon. His dragon is named Caraxes, aka the Bloodworm. And that's awesome. That totally looks like a bloodworm. It's both gross and awesome. And of course, moment number 3, that leads to moment number 3, here a dragon, there a dragon, everywhere a dragon. Yes, this episode there are 3 dragons, and how many heads are there in the Targaryen crest? I love it. So clever. Caraxes, Syrax, Rhaenyra's dragon, and Balerian's skull, which of course was moved down to the basement for Game of Thrones and used for target practice. What's next? A Red Keep garage sale? King Viserys, in trying to get his daughter ready to rule finally, corrects her belief that the Targaryens rule because they control dragons. Nobody can control a dragon, he tells her. That's an illusion perpetrated by the Targaryen house. You apparently can't take a dragon's saddle off either, as they seem to be forced to wear them all the time. Although, I'd be like, I'm not climbing up there and taking it off just to put it on again tomorrow. Whatever, man. The Dragon Keepers, by the way, remind me of MCU sorcerers. I keep expecting Wong to walk in there. Also, the Queen's funeral was a nice visual nod to Daenerys' execution of the Tarleys, and of course, Khal Drogo's funeral, where she she was like, oh, I'm going to go be with him, and everyone thought she was going to perish with him, like his assailant did, but of course, she ended up being born of fire with what? 3 dragons. Rule of 3. All right, the runner-up moment, number 2, is Queen or Pawn. That's right, we're playing, as I said, the Game of Thrones. And in the opening here, they have a great line where they say the only thing that could tear down the House of the Dragon was itself, which is the thesis statement for this whole show. That's a very important statement. As I said, we're playing a Game of Thrones. The king has the board kind of in his very chambers, which I think is a nice touch. It's also a little bit like having like model trains. I think it's great. Everyone on the show is worried about their position. Alicent even asks, Rhaenyra, aren't you worried about your position? And every move that the characters make is to strengthen their position and or weaken someone else's. In the end, you want to be kinged. I love it. Otto Hightower, the king's hand, has tried everything to get rid of Daemon. And I loved his line where he said, the gods have yet to make a man who lacks the patience for absolute power. I was like, zing, I love it. And with the king's latest attempt at a male heir, once again unsuccessful, Hightower moves to make the king name the princess as his heir. I think Hightower sees this as a placeholder that makes Daemon powerless with no direct claim to the throne. And the princess is actually a pawn who can easily be removed when opportunity presents itself, when Hightower or maybe someone else is ready. But let's just get Daemon out of there and, again, put a placeholder in there, a pawn instead of a queen. After all, in the intro, the kingdom chose a cousin of the king to rule rather than the king's own firstborn, who in that case was also a daughter, who now has the mocking, but I think still pretty cool nickname, the Queen Who Never Was. I was like, hey, they're still calling me Queen. I'll take it. I love it. But Hightower is very crafty, and he has multiple fronts of attack. Not only does he get Viserys to name his daughter as heir, but Hightower sends his own daughter to comfort the king. Comfort the king, right? He almost was like, wink, wink, wink. Reminding that they have common ground. They've both suffered loss. I thought he was a little too subtle, maybe. I was like, I think you got to spell it out a little bit more for Alicent here. But he was pretty frank when he said, why don't you put on one of your mom's dresses? Ew, right? To help the king forget that you're his teenage daughter's best friend. All right, so what's the top moment? I would say it's the fake battlefield versus the real one. As the Queen Who Never Was points out during the tournament, none of these knights have actually known battle. It's all posturing and for show, although that knight getting his face bashed in seemed to have a pretty real experience. Anyway, while the men are play fighting in a medieval gladiator arena, which I thought was really wonderfully realized, it actually reminded me a lot of the gladiator sequences, actually. I always feel that's like old Twitter. Just as vicious. The queen is trying to squeeze out a male heir to solidify her husband's power and her family line's control of the throne for yet another generation. Too bad the baby gets stuck, and the only option is ye old cesarean. Oh boy, this leads to, I think, an incredible sequence where the queen doesn't even know what's about to happen and is held down by the people who are supposed to be helping her so that the baby can be cut out of her belly while she's wide awake. This reminded me almost of Braveheart. I mean, wow, just torture. It was torture. And of course, she bleeds to death. And the whole scene underscores a discussion and a fear that we're still grappling with today, that a woman's life is meaningless against that of her unborn child, especially if that unborn child is a boy. Shivers. That's really, it's such a serious situation. And I can't believe we're still talking about this today, that it's still an issue. So the queen's whole identity, that's her whole identity in this episode, and it's really brilliant. Every time we see her, she's pregnant. And she even says, she jinxes herself by saying, I've already buried 5 babies. After this, I'm done. And, she made herself even less valuable to the king. She was like, no more chances after this. I'm closed for business. He's not going to just go home. He's going to go find someone else who's open for business. Because the king is hell-bent on a son, not just for the usual reasons, but because, like his relatives before him, he had a dream, a vision, that he would have a son, another Aegon, who would rule. Is not Viserys a Targaryen? Do his visions not also come true? Having a son not only secures his line, but his confidence in himself as a true Targaryen. Brilliant. And of course, it was all for nothing. That's the way these things usually go, as any woman will tell you. And the baby boy died anyway. So, but I don't know if her life could have even been saved. I do not know medieval medicine. All right, it seems pretty bad though. All right, this extended sequence not only provided shock value on the birth side, but it also had tremendous action on the joust tournament side. Joust-o-vision was super cool. And you learned that Daemon is not above hitting below the belt, or in this case, kneecapping a horse. And I gasped out loud when Daemon rode the rail before falling off his horse. I felt that embarrassment. That was just fantastic. Also, maces are super effective. You wouldn't think you'd want to mace over a sword, but Sir Criston Cole changed my mind about that. And the tournament not only had bloody violence, but also flirtation. The importance of a lady's favor not only allowed women to participate in the tournament, but I must say, really completed the look. All right, so those are the top 6 moments in episode 1 of House of the Dragon. Share your own top moments and thoughts down below. Subscribe today. And of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.